Hi everyone, it's Lori B. So as usual, I sit down to do a video and I have complete blank brain right before I push that record button. Now, I have to tell you, I'm somebody who thinks all the time. I'm not all that chatty, and when I have something to say, I'll say it, but I'm not normally a very chatty person, but I do think a lot. My brain is always going. And it just amazes me when I sit down to do this that no words are in my brain. Where are my words? What am I going to say about this? What? What? So I just decided to go ahead and press the button and we will see what happens because I torture myself. I really do. I am so happy that I got this little girl done. She is going off to her new owner tomorrow, and super happy with how it turned out. This is a needle book, and of course, you can put more things than just needles in here. Another thing is my mouth's not working right today. It's like I have rubber mouth. I don't get it, but I'm going to do the best I can. Uh, this is a needle book, and you can put more things in it than just needles. I prefer just a few things, and I keep all of my needles in mine. My binding needles for my journals, my beading needles, sewing needles, different sizes. That's what I have in mine. And then a few other things. I have my scissors and a few extra buttons, things like that. But for the most part, I call these needle books because that's what I originally intended for them to be, and so that's what it is. Love this fabric. This is a from a vintage christening dress that was heavily soiled. I have washed it. It is still a bit dingy, but I didn't iron it, and I definitely did not try to bleach it or anything like that because I like the grunginess of it, and I want it to be a little on the dingy side because it's supposed to look old. But it was just perfect. The bottom of the skirt on the dress was just perfect, and so I just cut out a piece and I used, this one's pretty squishy. I used, for the inside, I used a quilt remnant that I got off of eBay, and you can find them pretty easily. You might have to pay a pretty penny for them, especially if you get a whole quilt. But on this particular one, I was lucky to come across one that was really old and falling apart, and I did not need to do anything to it except wash it and then tea stain it, only because I like to wash things when I get them in, and try to age it back up a little bit. But I end up using some vintage buttons, and the tie is from that quilt, real pretty rosebuds with some greenery. And I've always loved pin tucks, so I especially love this fabric. It's got a few holes in it. Some of the pieces more than others. This is a pretty good piece here. But that just adds to the character. I use some teeny itty bitty beads, and I don't know what they call them in the beading world, but they're size 11, size 11/0 or 11 naught. I'm not sure what the lingo is in the beading world, but I'm just going to tell you they're really tiny and they're really fidgety. But they're so cute. And these are like a dusty pink. And I just kind of scattered them on, made a little, cluster and then two, and then a cluster and then two. That's kind of what I came up with. So I did 2 rows of those all the way across, around back. And they are fidgety to use, but the worst part, and I mean the worst part about using a bead this small, is threading the needle. I was practically in tears yesterday. And we're not talking, 2-3 minutes of me struggling. I'm talking about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And the holes in the needles are so tiny that really you can't even get a needle threader through and get it back out again with the thread. It's just too small. And that magic procedure that I see everybody using with rubbing the eye of the needle over the thread, and then the thread magically pops up into the hole, and then you grab it and you did not happen. Does not happen. I've never been able to do it. I think it's a trick. I think these people are playing games with me. I don't know how they do it. But I've never, even with a normal size needle, been able to do the magic procedure for threading needles with thread using the rub technique. So if somebody wants to tell me what the secret is about that, I would really appreciate it, because I really could have used it yesterday. But anyway, that was the worst part of these little tiny beads was just, don't get me started again. So I used one of the flowers that, I don't know where I got it, but I got a whole bunch of them. And I distressed that as well. I guess I should open it now. Here's the little scissor pocket, which I adore. I kind of brought out my inner Susan Taylor Brown, who, by the way, is a wonderful artist. She does have a YouTube channel. But it reminded me so much of her when I got done with it. I'm like, oh, this is Susan here. I'm loving that. It is another piece of quilt from another quilt. I did some messy stitching around the edges and made the little birdie nest, and she does have some eggs in there. And just a piece of lace and some layers and some more tiny seed beads, although these aren't as tiny as the other ones were. And I found this fabulous button, and it's plastic or resin or something like that, and I think it's pretty old. It's a shank, and it just went perfect with this. My scissor holders have a magnet inside so that they hold those scissors in place, and I put a pretty rose gold scissors in there for this one. It just went perfect. And I wish I could tell you how I put these together, but I don't really follow any sort of pattern or template. It really all depends on the fabrics that I use, and I don't know. I just place everything together, and then I hand sew everything. I don't do anything on the machine. I don't find that fun. I love hand sewing. So I can't really give you a template or a pattern on how to do these. The best thing to do is just to cut your fabric, use what you have, play with it, and something always ends up coming together, whether you do it on the machine or hand sewing. So here's the inside, and I've filled it. All this stuff isn't going to come with the book or the needle book. I just wanted to fill it up and kind of show you how much can go in here. I usually put lace in here, a strip for some safety pins, And I ended up doing 2 pockets here. It was one big pocket, and this lace stretched out. It's not stretchy, but it did have some looseness in it. So in order for things to be able to stay in there, I just stitched it up the middle, and just to kind of give you a guide as to where the pockets are, I put uh, a shell there with another piece of the quilt fabric, and this is the quilt back here. This is it's like a patchwork, some rosebuds and stripes. And I did take the quilt apart, so this is actually the back side of the quilt. I took the front side off because I didn't want to just hide it. This was going to be covering it, and I wanted to save that fabric. So I ended up taking the quilt apart, and then I re-quilted it once I got the book together. So I did the hand sewing there, and so it's still, it's still got that puffy quilt look to it. And put a little quote in there: play in the warmth of the sun, dance in the light of the moon. And the person this is going to loves cats like I do, so I put a little kitty bead on there. This is just a piece of lace, probably from some curtains or not a tablecloth maybe. I got that from Katie, and I added some sequins, just a few sequins on there with some scraps. And this lace, Alicon, I think it's called Alicon lace. It's vintage from France, and it's like a peachy, dark peachy color with a rose pink threading. Just a really pretty, unusual lace. Oh, I didn't want to leave this in. That was a surprise. I take that out. I'll show it later. I'll take pictures of it later once the lady has gotten her needle book in the mail. I didn't want her to see that, and I meant to take it out. But I usually include one of these measure clips with the needle books. I have a limited supply of them, but they come in handy. There's a measurement right there. This is from a vintage sheet, and I got these bundles from Pearl. Pearl does live sales on YouTube as well, and I've really enjoyed using these vintage sheets. They are so soft and so pretty. And I just did some messy stitching around the edges. And I posted some pictures while this was in progress on my Facebook. And it's so cute. I love this this upholstery. Sorry about my Band-Aid. I snipped the end of my finger yesterday, probably somewhere in the vicinity of when I was threading my needle. With the embroidery scissors, I snipped the end of my finger, and it just would not stop bleeding, which is not a good thing when you're sewing. So I have a very beat up Band-Aid on there right now. But this is where the needles are housed in here. And these are just cut up from laces and appliques. I use some embroidery thread. All of the flowers have little beads in them. And this, her crown, is actually from a millinery flower. Very, very old, and it was falling apart. And this is the back side. I liked the back side more than I liked the front side. And whoever made it was handmade, and whoever made it used a snap, one side of a snap, as the base, and sewed the ribbon onto the snap. I don't think it was ever snapped to anything, or when I got it, it wasn't. But it was just falling apart, and it's a little on the fragile side, and I really love how that turned out. But that's our crown. Just did I cut this out of some embroidery fabric, and I embroidered her feetsies, which you really can't see, and her beak. And this is just a piece of, it was like I had a metallic thread going through it. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I don't remember what that was, but it was just something that was laying on my desk, so I used it. Got a bit of sari silk, doodle stitching. There's the back, and this is a pocket. This is an applique from a 70s wedding dress, and here is your needle threader, which I couldn't use yesterday. I told you that story. And everybody these little needle threaders need their own pocket. I've learned that because you can never find them if they don't. So that's where the needle threader belongs. And you open this up. And here are the pieces of felt for the needles and your longer pens and regular pens. And I've just always thought that this was adequate amount of room for any needles and things that you have, because you can also put some of your needle packages in here. And I just didn't really find it necessary to put in more than 2 pages. And this is Murano wool. I got this off of Etsy, and it's just a better quality felt. It's a lot prettier too. It's got a pretty texture. Is it getting blurry? Hope not. And this is just some more fabric that I had. I don't think it's really old, but it's not really too new either. And it's got like a gold sheen, gold threading in between there. And here is a big pocket over here. Got my needles from Fred here. And here's the back side of that piece. And I've mentioned this in another video that I use heat and bond a lot, and that's how I hold my fabrics together in place, and then I stitch. I just find that a lot easier than having a bunch of pins stuck in the fabric while I'm stitching. So and it also gives your pages a little bit of weight. I think this one, yeah, because of the felt, but I think this is 3 layers, actually 3 fabrics, and then 2 layers of heat and bond in between those 2 layers, and then I stitch. And it's easy to stitch through too. I usually don't use a huge piece. I don't go edge to edge because it's not necessary, because I'm going to stitch it anyway. But really, that stuff comes in handy. And then here is the back with 2 more pockets. And this is my my favorite needle that I use for binding my journals. So that's how I store it. As I just this is cardstock, and just so I know where it is, that's how I store it. Here are those needles, people. These are those needles. Can you see an eye in there? Good Lord. They had me crying. I don't think I'd recommend them just for that reason, because they make you cry. Oh, I put a little photo in here too, because they're just so darn cute. Look at that. Look how they used to dress. I would dress like that. I like it. Too hot here in Florida though. And the end. So that's it for birdie number 4. And I call these birdies because, you know, they got birdies in them. And this is actually, the owner bought this for herself for her birthday, which was yesterday. So I didn't know that at the time. So I didn't have it ready, and I feel really bad. So this is coming to you. You know who you are. And I hope you love her. And I will be posting this video, the link, on my Facebook. And I do belong to several groups, but I don't think I've ever mentioned before, or maybe I have, I don't remember, that I can't really post links to my YouTubes in the groups. There's rules, and you have to abide by the rules. You don't want to do any self-promoting. I can certain ones I can, and certain I can't. And then in certain groups, you can only do it on certain days. And so, kind of just to make sure I'm always following the rules, I tend to not post the YouTube videos in some groups. Most of them I don't, because it's hard to keep up with all the rules, and I want to do the right thing. So the best way to ever see my videos and when they come out is to be a friend of mine on Facebook, which I would love for you to be. So please subscribe, and if you wouldn't mind liking this video and leaving a comment for me, because I had all that problem yesterday with threading my needle, and I could probably use a few comments from you guys. So I would really appreciate it. So I'm gonna go before I make a total fool of myself, which, if I haven't already. And I would like to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.